Okay, so welcome to the second episode of the Highly Motivated Podcast. So, this episode, I will be discussing the difference between motivation and manipulation through fear. Because it came up in one of my classes in school, so I felt like I should have talked about it. So I want to make a topic and I want to expand on the topic in question. But to the listeners, before anything, if you want to pause after I ask this, first I want you to think what you think of in the comparison and differences of motivation versus manipulation using fear. Excuse this time, or interruption, but we're going to take this time to notice the sponsor of this episode, which is Anchor, a very reliable, very useful podcast making platform. And it is free, yes. And if you want to make your own podcast, you should really go to anchor.fm or the Anchor app to get started with it. It has a lot of creation tools that will allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or even your computer. And Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so you don't have to go through that work of searching up places to get your podcast on. It'll do it all for you. You can make money from it. And it is everything. I use it for these podcasts. So I really recommend you guys go if you want to get started on your podcast. Alright, let's begin the episode. So, what I said we're going to talk about the difference between motivation and manipulation using fear. So, fear is a big motivation, is a big thing to motivate people. People use fear as a big motivator. A lot of people see fear as a thing that either keeps them down, as a demotivator, or others see fear as a motivator to start doing things. I'm gonna make the similarity to so fear, you're scared of a dog or animal chasing after you, or in a horror movie, a murderer chasing after you, so you have that motivation to run. But that demotivation, the fear, it makes some people want to steer from their path. While fear, yes, it's a big thing. Many people have struggles with it. I even have my fears. But the biggest thing is once you conquer your fears, or once you accept that your fears are not going away, or that they will always be a thing, once you either conquer them or accept them, you will be able to move forward because you will be less frightened of anything. So personally, I try to look at my fears as a motivation to push me in the right direction. Because a lot of people have that mindset of, if it's a fear, I need to conquer it, or if it's a fear, I should just avoid it. A lot of people avoid their fears. I understand that. that is a big thing that a lot of people do. So what you should do is try to go at your fears head on. It's going to be very difficult, but you can do it. Fear is only but a mindset. Rational fears, irrational fears, they're both the same thing. Rational fears, yes, they're more so reasonable fears and more people could agree with them, but still, they're more so mindsets. Irrational fears is like me saying I was scared of a gorilla suit rather than a gorilla. So that's irrational, but it's still the same thing. It's still the same concept. Use fear as a motivator. A lot more people see fear as a reason to give up or a reason to just stop everything. But others, more motivated people, see fear as their motivation. But that is not the only thing we are talking about in this episode. We are talking about the difference between using fear to motivate and using fear to manipulate. So now I'm going to talk about on the subject of using fear to manipulate. So I know majority of like high school, maybe even college students, majority of them have gone over a sermon that is like trying to get people back into the church, like back into the faith. So there's a sermon where he's using fear as in like fear of hell to get people to fully convert to Christianity and whatnot. So there's a one big repeating line that he uses, but he uses it a lot. He uses it as both personification and fear. He goes, hell's gaping mouth, as in like hell will eat you. He also uses a line of God is holding you up. You are only alive and not falling into the graces of hell, into the grasp of hell, because God is holding you and carrying you. So that is more so manipulation. It is not motivation. Manipulation is using fear against somebody, like blackmail. Like, say, like a brother and a sister, or two brothers, two sisters, or older siblings with younger siblings. Say the older sibling went out when they shouldn't have, or they snuck out, and the younger sibling realized or saw and witnessed it. The younger sibling can use that to their advantage, and they will tell the older sibling that, and they will get them to do whatever they want. So that is another manipulation. So a lot of times it's the fear of the parents and the fear of the punishment, but sometimes it's that you just don't want it to get out because it's embarrassing. But still, there's still the aspect of manipulation. So that in this sermon, he keeps saying stuff about Jesus hating and Jesus not liking people because they're not converted to Christianity, and that's using that as manipulation. So he's manipulating people into being fearful and to being scared that they will go to hell in the afterlife. I am not saying this to say that I am of any faith, because I am, but I am not saying this because I want to convert people. I am not. But I'm just saying this is what was said in a sermon that was studied in a class. So there's a big difference, because manipulation, it uses people. It uses people's fears against them. It uses people's fears to get what the offender wants. But the motivation does not. Motivation actually uses the fear to push people to get past their fear, push people further to grow. So, what I have is this difference. But there is a similarity, because that manipulation could teach somebody. Once they see that it was that they were being manipulated, they could learn. But that is not always the case. I understand that. So, people getting manipulated, it can always turn both ways. It can turn to the offenders, or it could turn to the manipulated. So, the way it could turn to the offenders is that the manipulated are so scared that they actually confide and concede to the offenders and the manipulators. But the way it turns to the manipulated, the manipulated realize that they are being manipulated, so then they turn it and argue with the manipulators. But that's how it is. It's fear conquering fear. That's what it is. It's conquering fear. That's the similarities. So that manipulation tactic, it is there. It's mainly used with fear. Motivation is not used with fear a lot, but still there's aspects where motivation is used with fear. But I want to say, don't use fear against people. So, I was watching a movie the other day. I'm not gonna disclose the movie because some people might have distaste for it, but the movie had something in the beginning parts of it where it said, if given the choice between being right and being kind, choose kind. And I just thought about that for a minute, and then I realized the fact of being right, yes, you have that feeling that you were correct, you were better, you were right. But being kind, you're doing the right thing, rather than just being right in your beliefs. Because your beliefs could be right in your mind, but your beliefs could be wrong in somebody else's. Like, I could say Jesus is real all I want, Jesus will rise up and save us, but I obviously won't say that, and I don't say that. But somebody else could be like, no, Jesus does not exist, but that is just different points of view. Like with the elections, I'm not gonna bring up politics too much, but with the elections there were, Donald Trump hates people, Donald Trump is racist, and then with his supporters there was, no he's not, he's done so much for the minority communities. But there was also the Trump side bashing on the Biden side, saying that he would overly tax people, and that he's forgetful and sleepy and stutters a lot. But in both ways, they're both saying that each one is bad. But from either side, their beliefs are right to them. Everybody is entitled to their beliefs. Well, if you agree with them or not, that is your choice. But let's try not to argue about stuff that is strictly based off of opinion. That is a big thing. While I said I wouldn't get controversial, I'm going to get controversial with this one thing because I did mention the topic of opinions. So, I've seen a bunch of all lives matter, blue lives matter, and stuff against the Black Lives Matter movements. There is racism all across Earth. There's racism all across the planet. While yes, it may be smaller in different areas or bigger in different areas, there's always racism. I'm not gonna say there's always gonna be racism, because there shouldn't always be racism. Personally, I believe in Black Lives Matter because Black lives in the US have been oppressed for ever since the United States has been founded. So I'm just gonna say there's a difference between liking a president, liking a political human, and basic human rights. There's a big difference. While yes, I will say you should fight for your own beliefs, please be considerate of everybody's beliefs, especially the beliefs of people fighting for the rights of minorities or oppressed. Just please be considerate of that. If you do not agree with me, I totally understand, but this is still with that Black Lives Matter thing. The black people in general, they're oppressed, and I've seen a lot of stories where it says black men have push themselves harder because they feel the need to prove themselves. That shouldn't be the case. Minority groups shouldn't feel the need to prove themselves to anybody. They should be on equal playing fields as everybody else. They shouldn't have to prove that they're equal. They should already be equal. That's what motivation is. Everybody's equal. Everybody is equal in the same aspect of starting point. We all start as children, we all start as babies, we all start at some point. The way we turn that point to our success or our downfall is our choice. It shouldn't be based off of the suppression or oppression of people by their skin color, by their sexuality, by their gender, by anything. It shouldn't be oppressed, suppressed. It shouldn't be anything related to putting people down because of how they were born or how they love or anything, or how they moved, how they it shouldn't matter where they came from, how they were born, who they love. We should all have the same playing field. The fact that we don't is wrong. So what I say is fight for your rights. Fight for your beliefs mainly. It's fight for your beliefs, fight for if you don't have solid beliefs and you will actually follow people. You will have that downfall. You will not get this success you desire, but it's still, you should have your beliefs, but don't bash other people's beliefs just because you feel you are superior. There's a difference between being right and being kind. Being kind is doing the right thing. Being right is being right to you, but not to everybody else. Being right is a personal belief. Being kind is doing what's right, and technically in that matter, it's truly being right. So I know I said I was going to talk about motivation versus manipulation, but I did go off because I didn't want to stay on one topic. One topic for anything is not good. It gets boring. So don't harp on one topic. That's another thing I want to say. Don't harp on one topic. Don't stay on one subject for your entire time. Try to move out. Like, move through everything. And also, I know other countries, if you listen to this, other countries don't celebrate it, but Thanksgiving is coming up. There's also other cultures that don't celebrate it the way, like in cultures in the US that don't celebrate it the way that other people celebrate it. Like, indigenous people do not celebrate the day of Thanksgiving like everybody, like your average Caucasian household in the US. So I want to keep that in mind, because I know there's going to be families coming in, there's going to be family squabbles, family arguments, disagreements, but please do not be discouraged by your own family. Stick to your own beliefs, stick to your goal, stick to your plan. Just because the plan gets messed up though, do never change the goal. Your goal should always remain the same. The plan can change to how you will get there better. The plan will always get skewed, messed up. It will always be messed with. It could always get ruined. But that does not mean you should change your goal. But with that being said, thank you for listening to the second episode. I will catch you on the third episode of Highly Motivated.